Is this thing on?
Mm-hmm.
Holy cow. Have no recollection whatsoever. So you see, it's not going to be a very...
It'll be fine.
Yeah, it'll be fine. I'll come out looking like a jerk.
No, you won't. I'll make you look good.
Yeah.
I'll make you look good.
Next Saturday, we leave for a week on Joe's boat. Yeah.
Looking forward to that?
Oh, yeah, very much. Yeah. Well, not only that, Ralph and Linda and the baby will be out there. So my immediate family will be all together, you know. You know, he had problems with his engine. He blew an engine, a brand new engine, just a month past warranty. And he had a lot of difficulty. But he got a new one and installed it, and he's back in business. Yeah. Yeah, well, that was a rite of passage, so to speak, for kids in Highlands, jumping off the Highlands Bridge.
Did you ever do it?
No, I had reached the age of common sense. I think it was a very bewildering time for me because I was yanked out of civilian life, and the next thing you know, I'm in an environment which was entirely new to me. And I wasn't a kid, you know, anymore. You know, a lot of my shipmates were young, you know, in their late teens and early 20s. I remember going to the school where I was inducted. I didn't volunteer. Don't get the wrong idea. I was drafted. I didn't want the Marines, by no means. So I talked to a lot of the young fellows that were in the group, telling them what a wonderful, snazzy uniform the Marines had, you know, and I was selected for the Navy, and the next thing you know, I was on a train bound for Sampson Training Base in New York State. It's on one of the Finger Lakes, Lake Seneca, I think. As I say, it was a very confusing time for me, and it was difficult for me to, I think, adapt to all of this sudden changes that I was being called upon to make. I had made an allotment to Jay, you know, to support her while I was in the Navy. I was getting very few dollars. I allotted as much as possible, you know. But we were told, they called out your name and you were told to get your gear ready. And we were transported by a truck out to a pier. And there was this ship tied up alongside the pier loading ammunition. It was an ammunition ship. I'll never forget her name, the USS Mazama. And I thought, oh no, not an ammunition ship. I mean, if a fly walked too heavily, maybe it might set it off, you know. I wasn't too happy about it. But fortunately, while we were on the pier, awaiting to be taken aboard, an officer on the ship called out and said they had received a full complement of men. They didn't need us. back on the truck, back to the Navy base. Well, a few days after, I don't recall, again we were told to gather our gear together and put on a train for Portland, Maine. And my recollection of that was we got there at night and taken to a pier from the train by truck and put aboard a whaleboat, just an open boat. And the boat went out to sea, and I could see lights on a ship, but I couldn't make out what type of ship or anything like that. And when we went alongside, we had to dump our gear aboard ship, climb aboard, and I remember asking somebody, because it was quite late at night, where do I sleep? And I was told, anywhere you can. So I found undercover, I found a pile of canvas, and I laid down there and slept as best I could. And sometime in the morning I woke and felt the ship rolling, walked out on the deck and looked around, and there was no land in sight. Sometime during the night, the ship, which was the Trip, had taken off, gotten underway, and we were out at sea. And I won't relate an experience because Janice is here.
You can say whatever you want.
Well, I had to urinate. And, you know, I'm new to a ship. I've never been on a ship before. So I walked to the rail and did what was necessary. And I got chewed out. What the hell are you doing? Somebody hollered that out. And, I learned that there was a head aboard, which was what they called the toilets. You know, I had a lot to learn. And the ship wasn't built to accommodate that many men. So for the first 4 or 5 months of my life on board, I had no regular sleeping sack. After I got to know some of my shipmates who had sacks, who were rated men, I could sleep while they were on duty and I was off duty or off watch. I could sleep in their sack, but not on their mattress. And when we left Portland, we went down off the Virginia Capes where they were assembling a convoy. And hundreds of ships of all types, tankers, merchantmen. And we were the escorts to protect them from submarines, you know. We operated on the outskirts of the convoy, and we were all in order. And every ship had to maintain a certain distance from the next one on either side, front and back. And it was at that time that while we were apprentice seamen, we were asked what we wanted to be. Well, I wanted to be up topside somewhere. I didn't want to be in the engine room. So they wanted me to become a radio man. But I didn't care for that because you were enclosed in a little room. If I had been smart, I would have chosen that because they knew everything that was going on. They got all the messages, you know. But at the time, I didn't know enough. But I chose the bridge. And then I began to study for a rate, because if you had a rate, there was a chance that you could get a sack, you know. So I studied and made a rate, and eventually I did get my own sack. And I think that convoy that we were on, we took it across without any incident through the Straits of Gibraltar and into the Mediterranean, and then it started to break up. So many ships were going here, so many ships were going there, and we wound up in Bizerte in North Africa. I remember the house, you know, quite vividly. Yeah. That's Yuppie Town now. Very expensive to live there now. And I remember when your grandfather and I used to visit, you know, have dates with Marie and Jay. We would walk up to take the bus, and there was a tavern on a corner. I think it was the Lincoln Inn. And we would go in there and have a beer and they had some herring or something like that, you know. That became a regular thing for us. And many times he'd hop the bus and I would walk up the viaduct, because I only lived a short way from the top of the viaduct. Well, I remember the honeymoon. I remember the wedding, and one thing that comes to mind is Uncle Tony coming to me, because I was very naive. I had never had any relationship with a woman. And he was trying to give me some advice on how to act, I guess, which was completely over my head. I didn't know what he was driving at. We had made arrangements to go on a honeymoon up to Schroon Lake, New York. I think that's SCHROON Lake. And we had I have pictures somewhere of snapshots taken. We had a cottage right on the shore, and there was a little beach there and a little raft anchored out some distance, and that's where we spent our honeymoon. And while we were registering, we ran into someone we knew. I knew, I think. And I often wondered whether they, you know, I'm sure I told them we were married and we were on a honeymoon, but I wonder if they ever accepted that as being true, you know, now that I know more about life than I did then. They're not for anything exceptional. They're just for being there at a certain time and a certain place, that's all. One of them is an occupation medal, which we all got for occupying the island of Chichijima in the Bonin Island group in the Pacific. You may have heard of Chichijima. No? That's where former President Bush was shot down. My job was quartermaster and signalman. I didn't learn anything in boot camp, except how to run. That's my father. He died when I was 7. In 1918, there was a Spanish flu pandemic, and he contracted the influenza, and it went into pneumonia, and he died. I still remember being called to his bedside. A wonderful woman. There'll never be another like her. Oh, it's a poem I had sent to Jay while I was in service. What do you want me to do, read it?
It's up to you, only if you want to. Yeah, it's up to you.
It's a nice poem.
You want to?
Read it.
Janice says you should.
Dear Chub, that was my nickname for her. I think this poem expresses better than I can my feelings for you. I hope you like it. The poem is entitled From Me to You. I do believe that God above created you for me to love. He picked you out from all the rest because he knew I loved you best. I once had heart called mine, 'tis true, but now it's gone from me to you. Take care of it as I have done, for you have two and I have none. If I go to heaven and you aren't there, I'll paint your face on the heavenly stair, just to let the angels know and see how much you really mean to me. If you aren't there by Judgment Day, I'll know you've gone the other way. And just to show you what I'll do, I'll even go to hell with you.
That's sweet. That's sweet.
That's sweet.
Very emotional. Thank you.